It's burger night in the Davison house, and today I'm working on home-ground burgers with all the fixings, lettuce, pickles, tomatoes, plus my all-time favorite burger condiment, homemade pickled onions. And to go with those burgers, my version of crispy home fries and an ice-cold bottle of Coca-Cola. Pickled red onions are a terrific condiment to have in the fridge, and they are especially good on homemade burgers. And they're easy to make. Start by taking a cup of red wine vinegar. We're gonna put it in a saucepan with 1/3 cup of sugar and 1/4 teaspoon of salt. We're gonna put this on the stove top. Now I'm just gonna bring this vinegar mixture to a boil, and I'm stirring it to make sure all that sugar is dissolved. All right, while that's cooking, let's chop the onions. All right, here I have a nice big red onion. Now you could do this with yellow onions or even a sweet onion like a Vidalia. Now we're gonna slice the onions very thinly, and I'm very particular about how I slice onions. So I sliced off the root and the stem end. I cut the onion in half. Now's when you can peel off that papery skin and that first layer, which is often bruised and a little slimy. So there's 2 ways to slice an onion. One is against the grain. You know, the grain runs from the tip to the root. When you do that, you get the rainbows, but I think those look a little wormy and they soften too quickly. So I like cutting with the grain. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna angle my knife as I go across the onion. For example, so about halfway through, I tip it on the other side, all the way to the middle. Here I have a jar that I'm gonna store the pickled onions in, and it's filled with hot water, and that's just to temper the glass so it won't crack when I add the boiling vinegar. So I'm gonna dump this out. Into the jar, the onions go. So that vinegar's at a boil, I'm gonna grab it from the stove. Now you just pour that hot vinegar right over the onions. And that's it. We're just gonna let this cool at room temperature for about an hour, and you can keep it in the fridge for up to a week. We take burgers pretty seriously in this house, largely because I grew up eating a ton of homemade hamburgers. By homemade, I mean home ground meat. That's right, we use my Oma meat grinder because she never bought ground meat either. She would pick out her piece of meat, grind it herself, so you knew it was fresh and you knew what was in it. And today I'm gonna show you my custom blend for hamburgers, and you wanna get 3 different cuts of meat for these burgers. This is skirt steak. It's a pound of skirt steak, which I love for its loose texture. Here we have some sirloin tips, which have a good meaty flavor, and last but not least, some short ribs, because they have that unctuous fattiness that is really good in a burger. So it's 1 pound of skirt steak, 8 ounces of sirloin steak tips, and 8 ounces of short rib. All right, so to get started, the first thing you wanna do is trim off any big nubs of fat. Of course, you wanna leave some of the fat on there because that makes the burger taste good. So if you see any big nubs, they're not gonna grind up in the food processor, so you wanna cut them off. This actually looks pretty good. Now, I'm gonna cut these into pretty small pieces, about 1/2-inch cubes. That will just allow the food processor, which is what we're gonna use to grind the meat, to really get in there and grind it to a nice even consistency. All right, so there's the short ribs. Now for the sirloin steak tips. Now usually sirloin steak tips aren't cut like this. I got duped at the store, and this is for stir fry, but it actually doesn't matter because we're gonna grind it up anyway. You just want to cut these into pieces again that will about 1/2 inch big. Will grind nicely in the food processor. Sneaky meat, guys. The one nice thing about buying it this way, it's mostly well trimmed already. Sirloin steak tips is obviously from the sirloin. Steak tips in general is a name that can mean a lot of different things to different butchers. But if you really want to get the accurate cut of meat, it's called flat meat. And nowadays I'm seeing flat meat as an actual term used in the butcher case. So that's something good to look out for. Last but not least, the skirt steak. If you can't find skirt steak, usually the restaurants scoop it all up because it's such a delicious cut. You can substitute flank steak. Now this skirt steak has a nice big fat cap on it, which is beautiful, but I don't want all of that into the burger. So I'm just gonna trim off any big knobs of fat. That looks pretty good. Got my dog bowl for scraps. The dog's not actually going to eat these scraps. It's just handy to have a place to put all those trims so your cutting board stays clean. That is a big knob of fat. Sometimes you can just pull the fat out with your fingers. That way you just don't trim away as much valuable meat. It looks pretty good. Now, like everything else, I'm just going to cut it into 1/2-inch cubes. Oh, this meat is beautifully marbled. You can see those striations of fat throughout the meat, and that's what gives skirt steak its wonderful tender texture and big beefy flavor. All right, back onto the tray it goes. Now you notice I have this tray lined with paper towels. That's because it's just nice to pat it dry before it goes into the freezer. Now we're going to mix it up just ahead of grinding. That way all the pieces are nicely mixed by the time it's ground. And this is going into the freezer, as I mentioned, to firm up, only for about 40 minutes. You want the outside to be good and firm, but you don't want it frozen through. All right, into the freezer this goes, uncovered.
Love what you're watching? Take your cooking to the next level with our Essential membership. Get instant access to thousands of recipes, tips, techniques, product reviews, and step-by-step videos. Our Members app allows you to search by ingredient, set dietary preferences, and save your favorite recipes. For those looking to level up, our newest feature, ATK Classes, offers more in-depth instruction led by ATK experts, so you can gain greater confidence in the kitchen. Start your free trial by visiting the App Store or going to americastestkitchen.com/YouTube today.
To go with those burgers, I'm going to make some oven fries, and for that you need 3 russet potatoes, which you need to peel. And now this recipe for oven fries is one I developed good 18, 19 years ago when I was kind of new at America's Test Kitchen, and I'm pretty proud of this little recipe. It really has stood the test of time, and it's a great way to cook home fries. They get nice and crisp, but not too greasy. And I remember trying different kinds of potatoes. I kind of like Yukon Golds, but everybody else in the test kitchen really wanted that flavor, that deep, hearty flavor of the russet, so that's why you should use russets. You want to buy russets that are even in size, you know, about 8 ounces each. All right, so that's 3 potatoes, nicely peeled. Peeling potatoes reminds me of my mother, who grew up in a very German household. My Oma and my Opa cooked traditional food, and her job every day after school was to peel the potatoes for dinner, because it wasn't a meal if it didn't have potatoes. She had a little chair she had in this grill grate she showed me when I was little, that she'd pull the little chair up and peel potatoes. It was her after school chore. All right, so to cut the potatoes for oven fries, we're gonna cut them into wedges. That's 2 nice flat sides that can get good and crisp in the oven. Depending on the potato shape, you can get anywhere from 10 to 12 fries per potato. So what you wanna do is cut it in half lengthwise, then quarter it, and then you can kind of gauge how big you want the fries to be. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Oh, this is definitely a 3 fry quarter right there. So you see when you're done, they're kind of like steak fries. They have a nice big flat surface that sits on the baking sheet and gets good and crisp. All right, so into a bucket they go while we cut the rest of the potatoes. All right, last wedge of potatoes here. Into the bucket they go. Now I'm putting these in a bucket because one of the keys I found to this recipe is soaking these wedges before you cook them for 10 minutes in hot tap water. That just helps the starches on the outside start to dissolve and makes them nice and crisp. So into the sink these go, covered with hot water. All right, here is the meat from the freezer, and it is the perfect texture. Nice and firm on the outside, but not frozen through. That's just gonna help it grind more evenly in the food processor. Now, if you have a meat grinder, by all means use it. But if you don't, a food processor does a wonderful job. So what we're gonna do is chop this in 4 batches. So take about 1/4 of the meat, sprinkle it into the food processor. Now we're gonna pulse it to the pieces are nice and finely ground and measure about 1/16. It's about 20 pulses. I'm just gonna dump it onto a nice clean sheet pan. Now this is where we're gonna shape the burgers, let's do the rest of the meat. All right, that's it. Now that the meat is all ground and spread out on this tray, break it apart a little bit and look for any big chunks of fat or gristle that didn't grind down, and now you can get rid of it before shaping the burgers. Okay, that looks pretty good. Now to shape the burgers, I'm gonna handle the meat very gently. If you notice, I was dumping the meat rather than grabbing it with my hands. Having a loose patty is kind of nice, and the only way to get that is by not overworking the meat. So I'm gonna divide this meat into 4 nice big burgers. In case you were wondering, that was 2 pounds of meat, 4 burgers, that's a ½ patty. Nice and big. All right, now I'm just gonna shape them into patties. I want the patties to be about 3/4 of an inch thick. So once you got it in a burger shape, what I like to do is pick it up, use my thumb to help shape the burger and help compact it ever so slightly, just so that it hangs together. But you can see on the bottom, you can see that loose meat texture. I don't want to destroy that. That is how you get a nice tender burger. All right, so there's 4 nice big burgers. One last trick is to add a divot to the middle. Have you ever cooked a burger and it puffs up on the grill and almost looks like a softball? Yep, well the way around that is just to depress the center ever so slightly so that it's thinner than the edges. Then when it cooks up, it's nice and level. All right, so that's it for the burger prep. Now I'm gonna cover these with plastic wrap and put them in the refrigerator until they're ready to cook. And I'm gonna get cleaned up and we can start roasting the fries. The fries are out of their hot water bath and it's time to get them ready for the oven. You notice I drained them and put them on some layers of paper toweling. Drying them off is really important or else they won't brown in the oven. And the whole point to giving a good oven fry is to get them to brown. All right, so now I'm gonna put them into a nice big bowl. Using the paper towels as a sling. Now I'm just gonna toss these with a little bit of vegetable oil just to get them nice and coated. About a tablespoon. The key to getting them brown is not only getting them dry, but also making sure they're nicely coated with oil. Also, how you prep the pan really matters here. Now, if you notice, this is a non-stick pan. If you have one, now's the time to pull it out because the potatoes won't stick, obviously, but the darker surface will help the potatoes brown. All right, now I'm gonna add about 4 tablespoons of vegetable oil. Now, I developed this recipe, I tried all different amounts of vegetable oil because if you're making oven fries, you kind of want to watch the oil. Some people like to use less. Can't do less than 4 tablespoons or it won't evenly coat the bottom of the pan. And then you get some fries that really aren't crisp. So you want to spread the veg oil out all over the pan. Now, one last trick is to put the salt and pepper right onto the pan, not onto the potatoes. So I'm going to add 3/4 teaspoon of table salt. You want to sprinkle it evenly over the pan, just like this. It's 1/2 teaspoon, 1/4 teaspoon. Same with the black pepper, 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper. By doing this, you're really helping ensure that the potatoes don't stick, especially crucial if you're not using a nonstick pan. Because if you think about it, the salt and pepper are almost acting like little ball bearings under the potatoes, so they don't stick to the pan so much. All right, now time to lay the potatoes onto the pan. Take your time here, flat side down. I think it's easier if you get them all going in the same direction. That way when you flip them over, it's just easier to maneuver them. If you have thinner ones, put them towards the middle. Put any guys that are on the thicker side towards the outside. All right, the potatoes do shrink as they cook in the oven, so it's a little tight to start. You might have to squeeze a few on the edges. One more, I can fit it in here. There we go, over here. All right, so they're lined up like little soldiers ready to get roasted. Now the roasting time for these potatoes can range anywhere from 25 to 40 minutes, depending on the pan, depending on your oven. But for the first 5 minutes or so, you wanna cover them with aluminum foil. My aluminum foil is a little on the skinny side, so I have to use 2 sheets. So you wanna wrap these in foil. That just traps the heat so the potatoes can steam and cook through. But then we'll take the foil out so they can get good and brown. All right, rip in hot oven, 475 degrees, right on the lowest rack again to concentrate the heat on the bottom of the pan.
At Cooks Illustrated, we're food nerds. That's why every recipe we develop involves research, cooking science, and rigorous testing by our team of expert test cooks. Only the highest rated recipes earn a place in our award-winning magazine. Every issue features our latest recipes and discoveries, cooking tips, and equipment and ingredient reviews. Our step-by-step photos and hand-drawn illustrations show you exactly how to succeed. So, are you ready to become the best cook you know? Subscribe to Cooks Illustrated magazine at cooksillustrated.com today.
All right, here are some potatoes that have been cooking for 20 minutes. Time to take a look. Wait till I flip them over. Oh, that is an oven fry. Are you kidding? Getting that level of browning is really hard to do in the oven. That's why the nonstick pan helps, using all that oil, and the bottom rack of the oven. So we're just gonna flip these over. You can see what a difference that nonstick pan makes. Ooh. The ones that get a little dark on the edges, like I said, if you have thicker ones, put them on the edges, because the edges will get a little more brown than the interior. And those are my favorites, the ones that are a little on the dark side. Welcome to the dark side. All right, that's it. They're all nicely flipped over. Back into the oven they go. Again, another 5 to 15 minutes till that second side is good and brown. While those fries are roasting in the oven, I'm gonna put together a quick burger sauce, which is just fun. And I encourage you to take this recipe and vary it to be your own, because it's kind of cool to have like a house burger sauce. All right, so it starts with 2 tablespoons of mayonnaise. 1 tablespoon, 2 tablespoons, 1 tablespoon ketchup, half a teaspoon sweet pickle relish. That's like half a teaspoon. Half a teaspoon of white distilled vinegar, half a teaspoon of sugar, last but not least, a little bit of pepper, 1/4 teaspoon of pepper. All right, that's the Davison house burger sauce. And that's it. Now I'm just gonna keep this in the refrigerator until serving time. All right, those fries are done. Look how crisp they are. You can hear it. Ready? That is an oven fry. Hard to believe you can get them that crisp. Now, my oven fries, they get a range of colors. Some are really dark. Those are mine. Like those burnt potato chips are my favorite. This is the fry version of those. The ones in the middle that are more evenly cooked, those are for my daughter. All right, so onto a paper towel lined tray just to get rid of any excess oil. Oh. All right, so we're gonna set those aside, let them drain for a bit while we cook the burgers. I'm gonna turn the oven down to 300 degrees because I'm gonna start the burgers on the stove, but finish them in the oven with the cheese. That's how you get nice melted cheese and a perfectly cooked medium rare burger, which is key for me. Before we cook them, let's season them up with some salt and pepper. If you notice, I didn't season them earlier when I was grinding the meat or even when I was shaping the burgers. That's because the salt can actually have a negative effect on the texture of the burgers. So if you want nice tender burgers, season them right before you cook. All right, be sure to season both sides. Now we're ready to cook. So over here I have a skillet. It is smoking. That's exactly what you want. There's a teaspoon of veg oil in this skillet. Nice big skillet. 12 inches, high heat. You want to gently add the burgers to the pan. You want to cook them for about 2 to 4 minutes on this first side till they're nice and brown. All right, those burgers have been frying for about 3 minutes on this first side. Now it's time to flip them over. The 2 spatula method, 1 to flip and 1 to catch. Oh, that browning is everything. You want to handle these pretty carefully because, like I said, they're hand-packed, which means they're a little on the delicate side, but that's going to make a great tasting burger. So you just got to be a little gentle when you cook them. All right, so those burgers have been cooking on that second side for about 3 minutes. Now, this is the trick to a perfectly medium rare burger. You finish them in the oven. So we're gonna take them out of the pan, put them on a rimmed baking sheet. All right, there's the last burger. Oh, those are lookers. All right, now's when you gotta add the cheese if you want cheese. 2 of us in the house like cheese, 1 person doesn't. One dog probably shouldn't have it, but he might get a little anyway. All right, so into the oven this goes, 300 degrees. Can take anywhere from 3 to 8 minutes, depending on how well done you like your burgers. This is a medium rare house, so we're looking for 120 to 125 for an internal temperature. Into the oven they go. I know, Ziggy, you smell burgers? All right. Yes, I made one for you, Buffy. All right. So the burgers they look done, but the only way to tell if they're medium rare or not is to take their temperature. Medium rare is between 120 and 125. All right, those burgers are perfect medium rare. We have to let them rest for 5 minutes before you get to eating. In the meantime, I'm gonna keep these fries warm in the oven. Those burgers have rested, and now it's time to eat. All right, so everyone in this house has their own way they like burgers, including the dog. All right, so first up, my daughter, who has no cheese. There's a cheeseburger for me, cheeseburger for Ian, cheeseburger for a very lucky puppy. Time to dress the burgers. All right, first, my daughter with no cheese. She likes one thing on her burgers, and that is a ton of pickles. I mean, like more pickles than you think you should have on a burger. That's my daughter. Next up, Mr. Ian. He likes lettuce, no tomato, double onion. So that's raw onions and those pickled onions I made. Let's not forget the pickles. There we go. For me, largely the same. Lettuce. I do love tomato. Double onions. Oh yeah. Yes to pickles. Ziggy. He just gets a burger on a bun. All right, and that's the Zigsters. Now the sauce, you can see, Ian and I love the sauce, my daughter not so much. Gotta get her liking the sauce though, it's a house thing, right? All right, so, I use a lot of sauce. Oh yeah. Oh, that is a burger. Okay, now, I know this is a little hokey, but I totally love using old school plastic trays with this checkerboard paper. I don't know, it's fun if you eat on the patio to bring them outside. Hokey, I know. All right, here's Marta's, here's Ian's, here's mine. Ziggy will get his laters. Last but not least, get the fries out of the oven. Ho, ho, ho. All right. Light golden for my daughter, medium golden for Ian. Extra crispy for me. Oh, this one, oh, that's gonna be the best fry of the bunch for me. All right, so it's burger time. What goes better with burger than an ice cold soda? And this is the old school Coca-Cola, the one in the glass bottle made with real sugar. Special treat on burger night, you get to have an old-fashioned Coke. Let's just focus on my burger for now. Let's cut it open. It's a big burger. Easier to eat if you cut it. Oh, look at that. Perfect medium rare. Just like I like it. It's a juicy burger. That's a burger. The meat tastes good. It's tender. It's perfectly medium rare. Has all the toppings I like, including double onions. Crispy fry. Best oven fries you can make. It's kind of an all-American dinner right here. See you next time.
If you're ready to take your cooking to the next level, head over to americastestkitchen.com and get a free trial of our ATK Essential membership. While you're there, you can sign up for our free email newsletters and download our app. So, what are you waiting for?